Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Spring 2026 Umpire Clinic, hosted by Rio Vista Little League in Arizona District 2. We're happy that you can check this out. We do this twice a year, once before each season. And then we do an advanced clinic sometime in between for umpires that have had a couple seasons under their belt and would like to start doing more advanced communication and get better affiliated with the rules or acclimated with the rules. District 2 is home to 5 little leagues. We have our sister league, Cactus Run Little League, Arrowhead Little League, Sidewinder Little League, and new as of last year, we're grateful to have them, Wickenburg Little League. So welcome aboard, and let's just jump right into it. This is unfortunately not recorded live during our clinic. We had some technical difficulties, so there'll be some things that don't really apply to this discussion, and I'll try to skip over those when I can. But this was our agenda Friday night, and basically we go over the schedule, structure of our umpire organization, background and safety, key dates, rules, uniforms and equipment, pre-game, post-game, how the different divisions are formatted, and then each mechanic that we go over on the following day. We do a field day, and we get all the umpires out onto the field, get them acclimated with their new positions. A lot of these umpires are former baseball players or current baseball players and softball players, so they're used to being in certain positions on the field as a player or coach, and now they have to get used to completely different set of positioning as an umpire. So as I said, my name is Colby McCormick. I'm the umpire-in-chief for Rio Vista Little League. My contact information is right there if you need it. Always feel free to reach out with questions about the rules or positioning or how what it takes to be an umpire, anything like that. So as the UIC, it's my job to recruit, train, mentor all of our umpires. I handle scheduling, conflict resolution, you name it. It's a volunteer position, just like every other position in Little League. It's a lot of fun. I spent my entire life playing and coaching baseball. And as I say at every single class, I thought I knew the game really, really well. Once I became an umpire, I realized I didn't know anything about the game as far as the rules are concerned. Growing up, you hear about you get coaches that say, hey, you can't do this, you can't do this, or you can do this, or you can do that. And then you find out the rules don't actually, substantiate those claims. Probably the most common one that most people are familiar with and have heard is, a runner's heading to, let's say, first base, throw is made to first base, and there's a tie. So the tie goes to the runner. I've heard this my whole life. You hear MLB announcers say it all the time. This past summer in 2025, we heard announcers for Little League World Series games say that. In fact, the rules do not say that. There's no such thing as a tie. The rule states that the runner must beat the ball, to the bag. So if there's a tie, then the runner did not, in fact, beat the ball. So then the runner would be out. So again, that's just one example of all the stuff you hear growing up around the sport. But we'll move on. So to be an umpire, if you are 18 years or older, you have to take this training. You have to do concussion, abuse awareness training. I believe new this year or last year was the Diamond Leader program you have to do. It's all free training. And a background check, of course. All of that's free to you. The league handles the cost of the background check, or Little League does, and then we can provide all that training. And most of that training is handled through our safety officer, so I've included our email there for our safety officer, so just reach out and they can get you set up for all the other training that you need to go through. It doesn't take very long. You can usually knock it out in a day or two. And it's just to make sure that you're prepared for being on the field with the kids. This is the structure that we have. I think most leagues have a similar structure. Myself, I'm the UIC, so I'm up there at the top. Again, I do scheduling, training, mentoring, recruitment, all that good stuff. We are very, very fortunate. We have a fairly decent size umpire corps. So typically we run two umpires in a crew per game. Obviously, if we have more, we'll do a 3 or 4 man crew, but we try to have at least 2 at every game. So the way this is set up is you would have 4 different, scenarios where you could have a 2-person game. You'd have the senior umpire who's starting from the left side. You'd have a senior umpire who's usually the adult. They would be the crew chief for the game. So basically that means, if there's any conflict with the managers or, things that need to be decided on, the crew chief usually takes the lead on those things. And typically they'll be the plate umpire. But again, we're really fortunate here. So we have a lot of junior umpires, which is anybody under 18. And a lot of them step up and they'll do plate too. So it's really awesome. But in that scenario, for example, you would have the adult and they're the senior umpire, they're the plate umpire. Then they would have a junior umpire as their base umpire in a partnership situation. The next is the same thing, except for it's just 2 adults. The third example is you have a junior umpire on plate and then the senior umpires on bases, and they would be the crew chief as the adult. And then the last one would be 2 junior umpires. The crew chief there for the plate umpires, they have final say, but we try not to ever have junior umpires on the field by themselves. So it would be those 2, and then if there's not an adult umpire available, we would have what we call a game coordinator, and it's an adult who's there to advocate for the junior umpires. So they're there to enjoy the game. They're on the outside of the backstop or the fences. And it's their job that if there's a conflict with one of the umpires and the coach, they would step in to help out with that. They're not there to decide, to be a deciding factor on the call that was made. They're there just to, again, to be, to provide protection to those junior umpires, make sure everybody's being safe and respectful. We can skip these. This isn't really too important, but if you're a Rio Vista umpire or coach, or even just parent who's curious about these rules, February 24th, this is all 2026, again, 2026. February 21st is our opening day for the league, and that'll kick off the regular season for T-ball and majors. Again, early March is usually the beginning of intermediates and juniors, but that's handled at the district level, so we don't have firm dates just yet. May usually ends the regular season and begins our in-house tournaments for minors and majors. Into May is usually the district-wide tournament of champions and tops. Now, I know that says majors for TOC, but I believe we did TOC for both minors and majors and tops for both minors and majors last year, so I would assume we're doing that again. June begins all the district-wide all-star tournaments, and then July is usually the statewide tournaments. Some of the regional stuff will also kick off in July. That's really not too relevant here unless you're going to go umpire one of those games, which is an option, something to work towards. All right, for the rules. A lot of people are getting away from the physical book or the blue book, which is for baseball, just because it costs like $8 to get it shipped to you and obviously does not automatically update when they make changes. The easiest and simplest way is you can get the Little League rule book for your app or as an app for your phone. As a coach, I also have one on my tablet so that, during a game, I have a tablet mounted to a fence and I can keep track of game changer and, the rules if I have a question about a rule during a game. Then there's local rules. So your Little League may have chosen local rules, and that can be, scoring during an inning or, batting through the lineup or substitutions. There's a lot of rules in the book that says, for the local league, you can choose to do this or do that. So be sure as an umpire, or if you're subbing in at a different league. So I'm with Rio Vista, but I often go over to Cactus Run and help them out. I often check just to make sure, hey, did you guys make any local rules for this season that I need to be aware of? So what are you responsible for as an umpire? Well, you're in control of the game, but you're not in charge of anybody. Okay, you're not the boss. You're not the end all be all. You're not a judge. Okay. By control, we just want to keep the game going in a timely manner. Most of these games are decided by, well, not decided, but they do have a run, or not a run rule, I'm sorry. They have a time limit. So it's either, an hour 45, no new inning, or a 2 hour drop dead. And, there's a lot of variations to that depending on the division and the league. But we need to be very aware of the time, and not give teams too much time in between innings, or when calling timeout and going to do a mound visit or anything like that. Some coaches will use that time strategy to get a game over with to ensure they win. And while that's perfectly legal, we try to keep it fair for both sides. Okay. We need to focus on our basics, the basic six, which we'll go over here in a little bit. Focus on that, focus on the pace of play. What we don't want you focusing on is pitch counts, substitutions, the score, anything like that. Now, if a player is above their pitch counts, or they're being improperly substituted, or there's a score issue, we do need to know about that, but we're not keeping track of it. That's what the scorekeepers are for, the pitch count person's for, and the managers are responsible for. All right, so for 2025, and I know you're going to say, well, why are we talking about 2025? It's 2026, and you're right. It is 2026. But there's a lot of changes that were made in 25 that are very important. And in case you weren't at any of the clinics in 25, I want to make sure everybody's aware of that, so that you don't start trying to eject managers or cause any issues over rules that were implemented in 25. So one of the big ones that brought us into this century was the ability for Little League managers and catchers to have a one-way electronic device to the catcher. It's a really cool, great way to prevent sign stealing and anything like that, simply because there's one less step in the sign. So I had a pitching coach. He would previously send a sign to the catcher, who would then relay that sign to the pitcher. Now you can verbally communicate to the catcher, who can then send that sign off to the pitcher. And so the big thing with this is the system cannot have the ability for the catcher to talk back to the pitching coach. Okay, so it can only be verbal from the coach to the catcher. And it has to be the catcher. You can't give this to the pitcher. You can't send it to the first baseman. You can't put it on any of your runners. It has to be the catcher. A big thing for umpires was the update to pregame equipment inspection. So previously, we would line up all the bats, all the helmets, all the catcher's gear, and the umpires had to check every single one for safety, legality, all that stuff. Little League decided that's no longer our responsibility. That was the manager's responsibility. Now, that being said, we are still responsible for knowing what's illegal and knowing what's unsafe. And if those things come up to bat, we have to deal with them. Or if a catcher comes up, doesn't have a throat protector, or their helmet's broken or something like that, we have to deal with it. Bat modifications and alterations. In 2025, they banned thumb guards and choke up assists, things like that. Remember that one because there's kind of an asterisk to it, because they did make an update in 2026. I just crossed neoprene sleeves out because, again, they made a 2026 update to that. New to 25 was items worn on hands, wrists. It has to be on your glove hand if you want to wear a bracelet or one of those pitching things where you can say coach yells out 3-2-5 or whatever, and you can look at 3-2-5 and see whatever it's a pitch calling card basically. Whatever you wear over there, it has to be a solid color, a single color, and it can't be white. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And then for 26, this was a big one because it always caused a lot of problems. A courtesy runner can be used before the pitcher or player of record completes the requirements of mandatory play. So previously, let's say it's top of first inning, you've got a pitcher or catcher who comes up to bat, gets on base. Now there's 2 outs, and you want to provide a courtesy runner to that catcher or pitcher so that they can come in and get ready for the next inning. You weren't allowed to do that until they made a complete at bat. So either they struck out, hit a home run, got on base, and either got out or scored or something like that. They had to completely finish that very first at bat. Now you don't have to do that with pitchers and catchers. They have to be the pitcher or catcher of record, so we have to be aware that that was their role. The top of one is going to be the hardest, just because typically the previous inning sets the record. Well, there's no previous inning in the top of first or bottom of first, so you just kind of have to trust it. But yeah, now they can. So like if the pitcher goes up and gets on base and there's 2 outs, there still has to be 2 outs. You can sub him. You can provide a courtesy runner for that player. We'll go a little bit more in depth in that in just a second. 110 note 2 legalizes pine tar. There is a height requirement. It can only travel so high up onto the bat. And you cannot cover the USA logo or the BB Core logo on, with whatever bat you're using. You can't cover that logo up. Now, I will allow you as an umpire to make the determination if you're going to let them try to get that off. Pine tar is ridiculously hard to remove, especially from metal bats. So maybe the first time I see it, I'll give them 30 or 40 seconds to try to get it off there. I'm not going to stand there for 10 minutes while they try to clean a bat. But again, I should have stated this earlier. This is not a complete, exhaustive rundown of the rule book. Okay, this is just hits the rule changes for 25 and 6, and then goes over, some of the more common rules that people don't understand or don't, causes confusion on the field. So, highly recommend you get the app or the book and go through it. That's what most of us more experienced umpires do. We go through this stuff all the time. All right, so back to the rule changes for 26. 111A3 removes the word neoprene from sleeves. So now it's just any sleeves. You can wear any sleeves you want under your jersey or over. They just can't be white or gray, and they've got to be a solid color. So nothing crazy, no Pokemon characters or anything like that. Just a solid color. White or gray is not legal. So red, blue, purple, pink, whatever you want, just not white or gray. All right. 304 and 714B clarifies the placement of runners when using those courtesy runner for pitcher or catcher. So again, this is kind of feeds off of that previous rule we were talking about with the courtesy runner. And by clarification, it means that, so let's say, you've got a pitcher on first, or your pitcher's on second and your catcher's on first, and there's 2 outs. If you want to courtesy swap both of those players, whoever the first out of the inning was has to sub out with your pitcher, and then the second out would sub out with the catcher. So if it goes pitcher catcher in the batting order, your first out has to replace this one, and your second out replaces this one on the base bats. That's going to get messed up as the seasons go, but just try to do your best to make sure the first out replaces the top player and the second out replaces the next player. All right, 317 clarifies that a reasonable amount of time must be provided to correct a malfunctioning pitch comm device. So that electronic device you're using to talk to your catcher, if there's a problem, cord gets unplugged, a battery dies, you accidentally switch channels, whatever it is, you as the umpire must provide a reasonable amount of time for the manager or a coach to come out there and correct that issue. I hate rules like this because what's the definition of reasonable? I have no idea, and I doubt anybody else does. So just try to be, as charitable, I guess, as you can. We don't want you delaying the game by 5 or 10 minutes to try to get stuff fixed. Use your best judgment on that, and especially if it's a device that's constantly breaking. At some point, we might just have to state, it's not working. So again, just use your best judgment on that one. 404 note 2: when a player is injured or sick, and must leave the game. I'm not going to really skip this, but we do go in depth on the next page. So I really like this update to the rule. I think it's really helpful and does the best to keep the kids in the game. 418 removes requirements for the UIC, so yours truly or any crew chief really to sign the scorebook for forfeits. So if we don't really forfeit, I can't remember last time I saw a game forfeited in Little League, but if you do have that situation, the crew chief or the UIC does not need to sign that scorebook. 606D was rewarded for consistency as far as illegal bats. It had a sister rule in, I think it was Rule 3, but it's just to make them similar. 715G is procedures for double first base use on uncaught third strikes. Basically, the fielder and the runner at that point, if it's an uncaught third strike, can use either side of the base, either the white side or the orange side or green, depending on your league. We do go significantly further in depth on that later on. In 806B, 50-70 juniors and seniors, the number of mound visits remaining does not prevent a pitcher once removed from the mound from returning as pitcher. That's not something that typically occurs. We're pretty good about telling the coaches how many mound visits they're entitled to have. So I do, hopefully you can see that okay. Rule change explanations. So basically the one we let off with courtesy runners for the pitcher and the catcher, we kind of went through that in depth, so I don't think we need to cover that again. 404 note 2, if the batter is sick or injured during an at-bat, the next batter will assume their place and count. So let's say my name is Colby, so we'll just use that. So let's say Colby's up to bat and fouls one off his toe, and it really, really hurts, and doesn't want to, continue that at-bat. Well, let's say I had a 1-1 count when that occurred. So let's say Josh, that's a name of one of my kids, so we'll say Josh is the next batter up, and he will take over. Will not take over in the sense that he moves into that spot, so to speak, but he's going to take that at bat, but he will have a 1-1 count. Okay, he will just assume the count from Colby. If it occurs, let's say I foul it off my foot. Next pitch, I put it in play and I reach base safely. But man, my foot really hurts and I don't think I can continue. Well, we can call timeout. We can remove that runner, and then whoever made the first out of the inning will be the runner for that hurt player or sick player. If there have been no outs, just take whoever would have been before you in the lineup. Maybe the last out of the previous inning. If let's say that player is taken off the field and we ice his toe and he feels better, he can come back now. Previously they weren't allowed to come back once they left the game. So if they're ill or sick, that's the same thing. If they're ill or injured and they want to return, they will just go back into their original spot in the lineup. If they don't come back at all during the game, they go home or go to the hospital or whatever, that spot will be skipped over without penalty. So there's no punitive penalty assigned. There's, you don't get to that spot and it's an automatic out. It's just, it is what it is. It's like that spot didn't exist. So for 715G, again, we're going to go through this again later on. The use of the safety base is not mandatory yet. However, local leagues can choose to use it. And I know for a fact that some are in District 2 are going to use it this year. During a batted ball, the fielder must use the white base or tag the runner. The runner must use the orange base. For majors and above, during an uncaught third strike, the fielder and batter/runner may use either base. At any other time, the runner retreats back to first. At any other time, but usually it's because the runner retreats, only the white base must be used. So basically, once the batter runner takes first base and safely, they are no longer allowed to use the orange part at all. Okay. Let's say on a batted ball, the batter runner takes off running, he touches the orange bag, does his little kick to the right and comes back. They have to go right back to the white base, automatically back to the white base. They can't stop and stand on the orange base and start taking off their shin guard and their elbow guard and all the other garbage these kids have these days to bat with, putting on their sliding mitt. No, they've got to stand on the white part of the base. If they come back and they're standing on the orange bag, they can be tagged out. That happened at least twice in the Summer All-Star Series that I saw live. So and that was upheld. So that is the rule. You've got to come back to the white bag immediately. All right, commonly misunderstood rules. So the uncaught Third strike, often referred to as drop third strike. It's not written that way in the rules. It's written uncaught third strike. Infield fly, batting out of order, running out of baseline, interference obstruction, sliding, appeals, and tagging up. That's what we're going to cover next. So buckle up, guys. It's going to be real exciting. So we're going to go over it kind of fast because I don't want this video to drag on for 3 hours. On an uncaught third strike, it's not called in minors. It is called in majors and above. It can be a called strike or a swinging strike that's not caught by the catcher. It can be a called or swinging strike that hits the ground before reaching the catcher. So if your catcher's sitting there, and the ball hits the dirt, batter swings, misses the ball, and then bounces up and the catcher catches it, that is still an uncaught third strike. Okay, they have to catch it cleanly. If there's a runner on first base and there's less than 2 outs, the batter cannot advance. If there is a runner on first base and there's 2 outs, the batter can advance. With this particular play, it is a force out. So as soon as the runners take off, the catcher would need to get the ball, either tag the batter runner or throw it to first or to whichever base they're trying to get the force out at. If the bases are loaded with 2 outs, again, it's a force play, and the catcher can step on home plate. All right, so we got a cool little video. Make sure this is the right one. So as you can see, pitcher comes set, delivers the ball, spikes it into the dirt, batter swings, and he should have ran. Because if he would have caught it and stepped on the bag, that's an out, but he didn't run. So he was safe and actually got to an extra base. But I'm not his coach, so anyway. Moving on. Infield fly. Runners on first and second, 4 bases loaded. There has to be less than 2 outs. It cannot be a line drive or a bunt, and it must be a fair ball. Ordinary effort. So basically, how do we define ordinary effort? If the player has to run and dive or slide catch it, that's not ordinary effort. Okay, it's basically, and then I do have a video for this, and you'll be able to see really well what ordinary effort means. It's basically the ability for the player to get under the ball and get ready to catch it. So it can totally be outside of the infield. The infield part of the rule name is stupid because it can be, if you've got somebody who's wicked fast and they could get all the way out to the warning track, get under the ball and catch it, it would still be an infield fly. The batter's out, whether they caught the ball or not. You can see behind this player, there's an umpire, and he's pointing up straight in the air. My finger's disappearing. There we go, up in the air. So that's the visual signal for this catch. You would also yell out, infield fly, batter's out. You can add infield fly, batter's out, as long as it stays fair. Whatever you want to do, just to make sure you're clear about it. The entire time this is going on, the ball is live. If the ball is caught, the runners can advance at their own risk, but they would have to tag up if it was caught. If it's not caught, they can just go to the next base if they want. They are not forced to. Remember, the batter is already out. So anybody on first and second, or first, second, and third, they can advance at their own risk. At that point, you have to tag the runner. It's not a force out anymore. Okay, it's very important. A very important distinction. So, as a Braves fan, a lifelong Braves fan, I watched this live, and it's still painful to this day. And I think this was, in 2013 or something like that. So, so you can see by the score up in the top left, there is 1 out. Full count, which doesn't matter, but there's 1 out and runners on first and second. Okay, so just watch where this is incredibly athletic play. So he hits the ball. He gets under it. He's under the ball. He totally could have caught that, and that's ordinary. Even though he's in shallow left field, that was ordinary effort, and that's unfortunately you can't really see any of the umpires, and since this is a wild card game, there's 6 umpires out there. You can't really see them signal, for the infield fly, but like I said, again, it's about the ordinary effort. So I'm going to stop it. So he's sprinting, and now he's under the ball. He's perfectly under the ball. So again, ordinary effort, and it doesn't have to be inside the infield, the traditional infield. Okay. This one always causes problems, even with really experienced coaches. Batting out of turn or out of order. In Little League, the batter that is supposed to be at bat is the one that would be declared out. So if it's, if Colby is up to bat, but Josh should have been up to bat, if I hit the ball and it's caught, Josh would be out. So if the defensive man, so if I'm up to bat and Josh should have been, and the defensive manager appeals in the middle of the at bat, then the offensive team has the opportunity to put the correct batter in place. And they have to put the right batter in place, but they'll take over that previous batter's count. So again, if I'm supposed to be at bat and Josh takes my at bat and he gets a 1-2 count, manager calls time, says, "Hey, this is the wrong dude," and we switch. Now I have his count, which it sucks, but that's how it is. Interference versus obstruction. Interference is committed by a batter or runner. Obstruction is committed by a fielder. And except for, like the catcher, he's a fielder, right? And there's catcher's interference. So that always kind of messed with me, because I always heard, interference has to be by the offense and obstructions by the defense, but unless it's catcher's interference or something like that. So general rule, the defensive player has the first priority to make a play on the ball. Okay, so if you've got a runner going from first to second, ball's hit to the second baseman, and he's charging at the ball, that second baseman has the right to field it. The runner has to pause or go around, something like that. And the ball doesn't have to hit the runner, and the runner doesn't have to hit the fielder for that to be interference. It can simply, the movement of the runner interfering with that player's ability to field the ball cleanly could be interference. Now, I will caution you, in minors and to some degree in majors, you've got a lot of very inexperienced players. You could probably call interference and obstruction on every single play. So just have some grace on those calls. If it's blatant, obvious, or intentional, sure, make those calls. But just, have some common sense when making that with those age groups. You've got some common scenarios: a ground ball to an infielder, like I said, pop up along the baseline between along the fair foul line between home plate and first base. You'll often get the catcher, first base, pitcher, and batter all kind of trying to occupy the same amount of space. And you, as the umpire, have to determine who should have made the catch, and did the runner interfere with that person. So if you've got those three fielders, and you determine that the pitcher should have been the one making the play, and the runner runs into the first baseman, that's not interference. It'd be obstruction on the first baseman. So another one, batters in the batter's box while the catcher attempts to throw to third. I mean, it can be anywhere, but that's probably the most common. And it's not just the presence of the batter. The batter has a right to stand there. It's their box. There is some, caveats to that when there's a play at home. They do have to get out of the way if there's a play at the plate. But a throw to third, they don't have to move. But if they do move and the catcher is interfered with, then that would be batter's interference. A big one for the defense on obstruction is the catcher. Please talk to your catchers, train them, show them that, if they don't have the ball, then they should not be on the plate. They shouldn't be between the plate and third base. I was always taught, I was a lifelong catcher, I was always taught, balls hit. If I'm not following the runner to first base, then I'm stepping in front of home plate so that they can throw it to me. Okay. That's interference versus obstruction. We'll go running out of the baseline's tough, because we know we don't chalk fields this way. I mean, this is the way it's supposed to be done, but it's rare that it happens. There's no must slide rule in Little League, but they can't make contact with people. So, like, they can't lower their shoulder and take out a second baseman who's trying to throw it. So the best way to avoid contact is often to slide. Okay. So with running on the baseline, the runner is more than 3 feet away from his or her baseline to avoid being tagged, unless such action is to avoid interference with the fielder. Now that doesn't give them free reign to like run wherever they want to, but I'll tell you right now, trying to decide if they moved 3 feet is really difficult when it's a live play. This doesn't count when they're running outside to round the base and touch the front of the bag and go to the next one. It's at the point of attempt on the runner. Okay, so you're gonna hear coaches flip out about this one, especially on drop thirds. The ball's dropped, the batter starts to walk away like he's going into the dugout because he thinks he's out. Then you're going to hear the entire world around you erupt in run, and so they try to so he gets 10 feet away from home plate, drops his bag, takes off running. Well, he hasn't determined a base. At that point is when he determines a base path. It's not that white line. This is not a base path. This is a fair foul line. Okay, fair foul line, not base path. And anybody that tells you different is wrong. That the runner has no obligation to run along that white line. Okay, so I've never seen number 2 where they run and they don't try to touch the base and try to advance. I've never seen that one, but obviously it's happened or they wouldn't write it down. So literally again with the sliding, for minors and majors, they cannot slide head first when advancing. Okay, so if you're going from third to home and you're trying to get under the tag, you cannot slide head first. And I'm 40 years old. I've got 3 boys. I've been around baseball my entire life. I can tell the difference between a head first slide and tripping and falling. Okay, and I've explained both to different coaches. So when I call your kid out for head first slide, please don't say he tripped because I know he didn't. And even if he did, and I don't think he did, I'm not changing that call. Okay. That's what it is. Because in my opinion, he slid head first. Now they can go head first if they're retreating. So same player, he's going from third to home. It's a great throw to home. He's like, oh no, I'm going back to third so I don't get tagged out. If he's going back to third and slides head first, he is allowed to do that. Don't yell at me. I didn't write these rules. Okay, so if you've got a problem with the fact that they can go head first backwards but not forwards, I understand your frustration with that. Reach out to Williamsport. I have no control over what the rules say. Okay. All right. Illegal pitch versus blocks. So minors and majors, they don't have blocks. They have illegal pitches. There's not a big difference between what an illegal pitch is and what a balk is. It's basically just separating the punitive penalty. Okay. So with a balk, anybody on base gets a free base. Okay. But an illegal pitch, and it's based on your league. Okay, so some leagues, if an illegal pitch is called, a ball is awarded to the batter. In some leagues, that's not the case. Again, in minors and majors, you could call an illegal pitch almost every pitch. Okay, so the only time I really stop play is when it's egregious and it really throws off the batter's timing. Then I might call time. I'll tell them to stop, reset, and start over. So what is an illegal pitch or a balk? It's basically a billion different things could be constituted, but some of the more common ones, quick pitching, they stop in the middle of their delivery. So they come set and they start to go and then they stop and restart. They disengage from the rubber or the pitcher's plate with the wrong foot. So if they're right-handed, their right foot would be the one engaged to the rubber. If they tried to step off with their front foot, that would be a balk or an illegal pitch. You see this a lot in minors. I don't know if they get excited or they're nervous or whatever, but their foot's up against the rubber and they just drop the ball or they bounce it off the mound like a basketball. Okay, it happens all the time, and this is exactly why we don't have balks. In intermediates and above, same stuff as above. I'd say a pretty common one is no discernible stop. So they go from their feet are spread out. They're getting the call from the catcher, and instead of coming set, they just kind of come together and throw. Okay, so I would like to see minors and major coaches when they're working with their pitchers, really focusing on, that coming set properly, simply because it's a huge problem in the older divisions. Basically, a balk is any intentional move to deceive the runner. Now, there are legal ways to deceive a runner, but you have to reach out to me specifically if you want help with that. Okay, so we got a video on a balk. This one's, if I remember correctly, a little bit harder to see, but we'll find out together. So he's calling for an intentional walk. Oh, okay. So he stepped left with his front foot before he was able to disengage with his back foot. That one's not terribly great. But anyway, you kind of get the idea. It's any intentional. That's so in his normal move, he removes his glove, starts to go. That was a quick pitch, but it looked like he did disengage. Anyway, we can do this all day long looking at balk videos. It's probably one of the least understood rule. There's lots of MLB umpires that don't understand balks. No offense to MLB umpires. They do the best job they can too, for the most part. But all right, runners leaving early. This is predominantly a little league rule. A runner must wait until the ball crosses the batter before trying to advance to the next base or lead off or anything like that. If they do leave early, we have here at Rio, we have little red flags type things, and we toss those on the ground. We try not to toss them into the field of play or where it could, trip a runner or a fielder or anything. And it's basically, it doesn't stop play. It's just a visual reminder to me to make a call if I need to. It's also really good if coaches pay attention and they see a coach or an umpire throw that on the ground and they say, "Oh shoot, my runner left early, so I need to talk to them." Because what'll happen is if the ball, let's say they leave early, ball gets behind the catcher and they steal and get to second safely. Once the play's over, so if they get thrown out, that's the result of the play. That runner's out. But if they get there safely, we'll call time, state the runner left early, and send them back to first or whatever base they were occupying. Now, where it really kind of stinks is 713, example 15. It's called a poof play. Base is full. Any runner leaves too soon. Batter reaches first safely on any ball bunted or hit within the field. All runners advance one base except for the runner advancing from third. That runner just doesn't exist anymore. The run doesn't count, but no out is charged. Okay. It's really a drag. I hate calling that, but rules are rules, right? So, and it's this particular rule, unfortunately, is not universally taught in all the leagues. So, it's really bad in All-Stars when you get a league that shows up and they haven't been following this rule all season, and then you call it during All-Stars, and the coaches have no idea, the players have no idea, the parents surely have no idea. And now they're mad at you and saying you cost the game, when that's not the case. So leagues, you got to follow the rules. And one of the common ones you're going to hear in minors and majors is get the ball back to the pitcher, and then pitcher, get on the mound. As soon as you're on the mound, you can't go anywhere. That's not true either. So you got a runner on third base, and he's 4 feet off the bag, and the pitcher gets the ball back from the catcher. Let's say it was a pass ball, but he couldn't score. So he's standing like between the umpire and the backstop or something. Who knows? Throws it back to the pitcher. Pitcher gets back on the mound. That runner can still go. The catcher has to get back to where they need to be and ready to receive the next pitch. The umpire's got to be ready. Everybody's got to be ready. And then that runner has to make a decision. They either have to go back or they have to go. If they just stand there, well, as soon as that pitcher makes the next pitch, well, guess what? That kid left early, right? So you would throw your flag, make the call. So here's an example of leaving early. Watch. So yellow is the defense, blue is offense. I believe that's Venezuela. Curacao, they're absolute studs in All-Stars. But watch the base runner at first. Okay. He's off the bag. There's the ball right now. So it hasn't crossed the batter. And he actually jumped off the bag when the ball was back here. So this is the right call. It's just, again, he's got an easy steal now. But if he would have stayed on the base, he would have had an easy steal. So, again, here's the ball. He's off the bag already, and the ball's right there. So, be careful with this one. I'm going to be honest. Just because, make sure they're intentionally getting off the bag. Some kids, for whatever reason, even though it's a really bad idea, they'll step off the bag to put their other foot on the bag. And that's not them leaving early. That's just them repositioning their feet. So there's no reason to throw the flag down just because they repositioned their feet. I hope that makes sense. It wasn't too confusing. Appeals follow original baseball rules. That's OBR. That's the MLB. So there's no verbal appeals. So you can't say, hey, boy, you didn't step on the bag. You should call him out. You have to get the pitcher back on the plate. The ball has to be in play. The pitcher has to step off legally. If they step off illegally, that's a new play. Okay. And now you can't appeal. It's a good idea to tell the umpire what you're doing so that, just so they're aware. Most of them will know. You probably don't have to tell them. We typically catch that unless you've got one umpire and their bases are loaded, we're going to see where the ball gets then we're going to watch the lead runner. That's how it is. So you need to complete that play. So you throw it over to third because that's where he didn't step. You step on the bag. Keep in mind, this is a live ball. Okay, so if you've got a runner on first and you appeal over at third, that runner can take second. And if you make a bad throw, that runner is going to go to second. Okay, so just remember it's an appeal or it's a live ball. If the catcher or if it occurs at home, the catcher just needs to simply step on home plate. And unless the runner touched or didn't touch and went into the dugout. So if they went into the dugout, they don't have an opportunity to come back. They're in a dead zone and they cannot come back on the field to retouch. So the catcher just steps on the bag. It's a judgment call, and judgment calls cannot be appealed. Okay, so if I yell safe or if I yell out, you cannot appeal that. Okay, and you're probably sitting there like, well, then every call is a judgment call, and I can't appeal anything. That's not true. Anytime somebody says safe or out or ball or strike, sure, or fair foul, that's not appealable. It's my judgment, okay, that determines that call. Now, what you can do, you can never challenge balls and strikes. That's just not going to happen. But what you can do is, let's say and it's probably the most common place, balls thrown to first on a batted ball. So the batter runner's running hard, trying to get to first base. Then all of a sudden, ball's thrown, he catches it, umpire calls him out. But you were in your dugout, and or your first base coach or somebody on your side noticed that the first baseman's foot was off the bags. So you request time, umpire grants it. You go out there and you state your case to the umpire that made the call. You're not going to go to the, let's say you have an adult umpire at the plate and a junior umpire on first. You're not going to go over to the adult umpire. You're going to go to the first base umpire, okay? Because they made the call. So you go to them and you're like, hey, and if you say, hey, you missed that call, he was out, or he was safe because, then that umpire is going to say, no, he was out, okay? What you have to do respectfully, calmly, is you go up there and you say, hey, why did you call them out? And they say, oh, because the ball beat the runner. Okay, well, I saw his foot come off the bag. And they'll be like, oh, I didn't see that. And then you just calmly ask them if they can go check with their partner, see if they saw it. And the way we do our mechanics is somebody should have seen it, okay? So you go over there, then those two umpires can get together if they choose and talk about it. Now, whoever made the call, it's ultimately their responsibility to change or stick with that call. So just, even if you know for a fact that the home plate umpire saw that foot came off the bag, they can't force that other umpire to change, okay? It's just how it is. some calls are going to go against you, some calls aren't, and we're all human and we all make mistakes, and that includes umpires and coaches. Okay, so if you don't like the call, lots of things in life I don't like, but you just kind of accept it and move on. Okay. All right, the double base or the safety base. So we did go over this a lot. You can clearly see the difference. So this is, in fair territory. This is not in fair territory. So like batted ball goes down the line, hits this base, that's fair. Okay. If it comes down the line and hits that base, it's not fair. The fielder has to play on a batted ball, has to play this bag, the white one. The runner has to play this one, the orange one. On an uncaught third strike, anybody can use any base. Okay. And that's for safety because a lot of times that throw might be coming from this side. So the fielder has the right to come over here and field it, and then the runner can run this one. So it's just about safety. Again, after the initial play, they've got to come straight back to the white bag, the runner does, and then that's the base they use going forward. Okay. All right. Any questions on that? You can certainly reach out to your league safety officer or your UIC for more clarification. All right. Grounds for ejection. I can proudly state that for however long I've been umpiring, I've never ejected anybody. Come close a couple times, but I've thankfully never had to do it. And I hope I never have to. If any of these things occur, you're certainly well within your rights to eject a coach, player, fan, whatever. If it's a personal comment that's negatively directed at you, so, hey, Blue, you suck, or hey, Colby, you're terrible, you can certainly eject somebody for that. If they are throwing curse words around, you can eject them for that. If you have a conversation and the coach, and you say, all right, coach, we're done, and they won't go back to their dugout, if that's where they're supposed to be, if they're coaching third base, they obviously aren't going to go back to their dugout. But if it's prolonged, you can certainly eject them. If they're just sitting in their dugout talking smack all game long, then you can certainly eject them for that too. I was a coach a long time, still am, and I will be honest with you, I don't agree with every call that every umpire makes. Nobody does. So I have sat in my dugout and looked at one of my other, had another coach next to me like, good Lord, where did that miss? Or how was that? How was he called out on that? But you've got to do it in a calm, low enough voice that the umpires aren't hearing you. You're certainly allowed to disagree with the calls. I would recommend, though, that you don't do it around players. They're very malleable, like they hear you talking trash about the umpires, they're going to get that same mentality, okay? And then it spills onto the field, and then we have huge problems, okay? So if you want to talk to one of your adult coaches and go, man, I don't know where his zone's at tonight, that's fine. Just keep it between the two of you, though. If any player or coach makes physical contact with you, that's certainly grounds for ejection. Now, I'm not saying if they, hey, how's it going, Blue? Don't throw them out of the game for that. Or if they shake your hand, don't throw them, it's, a push or a chest bump or a slap, or certainly if they try to punch you or something. But, again, let's use some common sense when we're out there. Be approachable. And this is exactly why I've never ejected anybody. Between being approachable and using certain conflict de-escalation techniques, this is how I've prevented having to eject anybody. Okay, the coaches should be able to know that they're comfortable, that you're comfortable with them coming over and talking to you about stuff. Now, a manager is the only one that can appeal things. It can't be an assistant coach. But I've allowed assistant coaches between innings. They come by, hey, you made this call. Why'd you make that call? That's not a challenge. They're not trying to appeal it. They're just trying to learn too. Okay. And even though some coaches act like they know everything, none of them know everything. Okay. That includes me. That includes Luis, who's our president and also an umpire and a coach. So, none of us know everything about this sport. So use every opportunity to educate as much as you can. An ejection will come with a 1-game suspension. So they get ejected for that game and then they miss the next one. Okay. It's not appealable through the board. That's how it is. Okay. I did forget this part. Give warnings, verbal, maybe if they're causing too many problems at first base, you say, hey, you're no longer a base coach. You're going to stay in the dugout today. And then when you've exhausted everything, then you can eject, okay? But that should never be your first go-to. All right, so that's kind of the conclusion of the rules part, okay? Everything after this is very, very specific to the umpires. If you're just a coach or a parent trying to understand the game a little bit more, you probably could end the video right now. But if you want to stick around, you're welcome to. So umpire uniform. So we always try to dress the same at any given game. Now sometimes that doesn't happen. Maybe I was by myself in game one, so I'm wearing a red shirt, and then game two shows up, and maybe somebody couldn't make that crew, so they're down to one person. Well, I'm going to stick around and help them out because that's just how I am. I don't like one umpire games. Or maybe they chose to wear a black shirt that day. Well, I have red. I didn't bring a black one. Plot twist, I usually carry everything all the time just in case, but most people don't. So, it's perfectly okay if an umpire jumps out there wearing black and another one's wearing red. Everybody will kind of see during the play meeting that they're on the same team. For hats, we prefer a black hat. You don't need to go out there and buy the navy one or anything like that. Just get a black hat. It can be something like this. You've got a D2. This is AZD2 hat. If you're doing Rio Vista games, you can even wear a past, all-star hat. Or if you're Cactus Ren, you could wear a past all-star hat. Nobody's going to care too much as long as it's not inappropriate. I like to wear this one because this is the one the dancing umpire from the Savannah Bananas wears. So if I'm doing bases, I'll wear this one a lot. Rio Vista has their own umpire hats. We rock those. But just wear something appropriate. Preferably black if you've got it. I will recommend if you're helping out another league or doing district games, intermediates, juniors, all-stars, that stuff, don't wear league-specific hats just because people might get the wrong idea. Now, as of right now, as of 2026, Rio Vista and Cactus Ren are incredibly close little leagues. We help them out all the time. They help us out all the time. It's not uncommon to see Rio people at Cactus Ren games supporting them or Cactus Ren folks over at Rio games supporting us. We help each other out with field needs, with umpire needs, you name it, we're there for each other. I would challenge any two leagues across the country to be as close as Cactus Ren and Rio Vista are. So if you're a Rio ump and you go over to Cactus Ren to help out and you're wearing a Rio hat, some of my close friends over there might, give you a hard time, but nobody's going to question your integrity. Okay. But again, if you have it, wear a D2 hat, wear a blank hat, little league hat, something like that. Shirt should be collared. There's, 12 or 13 different colored shirts out there that umpires wear. It doesn't even have to be collared. I mean, if you're willing to be out there, you wear what you have. I'm not telling you to go out there and buy. These umpire shirts aren't cheap. They're like $30-$40 a piece, So I'm not telling you to go spend $1,000 on shirts, pants, hats, shoes, equipment, and all that other stuff, okay? Pants, we typically wear charcoal or heather, which is a variation of gray. Both are variations of gray. In this picture, you can see Brandon's wearing the Little League official Little League black shirt. I'm wearing the Smitty MLB version 3 black. Luis and Ryan are wearing Smitty version 2, and Matt's also wearing version 3. So we're all wearing black shirts, but they're all different kind, so nobody's going to be upset if they're slightly different. And then for our junior umpires down here, they're all wearing gray pants, a couple, maybe one or two black, but they're all slightly different shades of gray. Okay. So again, as long as you're close, you do get credit for that. Shoes, we prefer black. Wear something comfortable, though. You're out there for 2.5 hours, 2 hours of game time, half hour of, meetings and checking the field out. Your feet are going to hurt if you're wearing bad shoes. So wear good, comfortable shoes. If you're behind the plate, wear something with steel toes, composite toes, or actual plate shoes. Okay. Socks and belts should also be black. Highly recommend a belt. You don't want your pants falling down while you're chasing runners around the field. All right. That being said about uniforms, it's incredibly important to look professional. The more professional you look, the more trust that the general public, the people, the coaches, the players, the parents in the stands, the more they will trust your calls. If you show up, your shirt's all wrinkly and it's untucked and, you're wearing shorts and flip-flops, people aren't going to trust your calls. So, you got picture A. Yes, he's wearing a Little League blue shirt. He's got a black hat on. He actually is wearing Umpire shoes. But these are either sweatpants or baseball pants. His shirt's untucked. His hat's backwards. He doesn't look super professional. Okay, you compare that with option B, and you've got 4 umpires at one of the Little League World Series games. Their shirts match, their pants match, their pants and shirts are ironed, their shoes are clean, their hats look nice. Everything about them says professionalism. Okay, I don't know who these 4 are. I don't think I've ever watched them officiate a game. I just know that in this picture, they look incredibly professional based on their appearance. Okay, and unfortunately, that does go a long way. Okay. If you look professional, you act professional, you'll be professional. Okay. Now, personally, I wouldn't trust anybody making a call who's not dressed like this group. If you're not dressed in a suit, tie, your chest protector's not over your suit, then you probably don't know what you're doing. No, I'm kidding. This is from like 1902 or something. And I do like the look, but umping in this stuff in Arizona would probably kill people. All right. So what do we do pregame? Well, you're going to get together. You're going to meet. All right. So about 20 minutes before the game starts, you want to meet together at our fields. You'll do it in the parking lot. You have a couple, depending on which field you're at, we have an area at each field where we kind of get together, plate umpire can get dressed. And then we talk about, rotations and how we're going to communicate and stuff like that. It's super basic. It's mostly, if you've got more than 2 people, hey, which base do you want to work today? I'll do first. You can do third or whatever. Then when you're ready to go, you're going to enter the field together as a crew. If one needs to stop and use the restroom, then you all stop and you let that person go to the bathroom, wash their hands, and then you guys march onto the field together. Now there will be times when you don't enter together because somebody's running late or what have you, but you do your best to enter as a crew. You're going to quickly review the field for any issues or obstacles. Remember, safety is always first here. Like that's paramount. Kids' safety, the umpire safety, the coach's safety, all that stuff. Then you're going to go to either the plate umpire or the crew chief, depending on whose role is what. You're going to go to the manager of the home team, and they will provide you with 3 baseballs, preferably 2 pearls or the bright white new balls, and then 1 used but good condition ball. Okay, so you're going to get those 3. Then I always ask, hey, coach, who's your scorekeeper today? Because home team has the official score, and I ask them to, after a week or 2 of doing the same teams, you're going to know who's scorekeeping. Okay, so I just always want to find out from the coach, and then they can introduce us, and then I want to hear that person talk a little bit so I can hear their voice and figure out what they sound like. So then about 5-6 minutes, maybe a little longer before the game starts, it might be a little bit more time. You might need more time at the very beginning of the season, but as the season goes along, you want about 5 minutes. You'll yell as loud as you can, managers, and then they know that means they need to come to home plate. And then you do your introductions between the managers and the umpires. You go over any ground rules that might apply to that field. There's a gap over here in this fence, or there's a hole in this fence, or what have you. If there's any unique dead zones, that kind of thing. And then you go over any, if there's any brand new rules to the season that are really, really critical that you think they need to know, or you have noticed that commonly get messed up, you'll go over those. You go over the run rule conditions, the time for the game, and then but critically, you need to ask if all of their players are properly and legally equipped to play the game. Okay. And you need to get a verbal confirmation from that. It can't just be a head nod or a thumbs up. They need to say, yes, everybody's legally equipped to play. Okay, makes sense? Clear as mud. All right, post game, once you get to the score limit or inning limit or time limit, the scorekeeper will let you know, and the plate umpire will call time and declare the game over. Return all the balls to the coach that you got them from, collect all your stuff, and then leave the field as a crew. You're going to want to meet back in the original spot and do a post-game review. Discuss any tough calls, or if you had some positioning issues, like, hey, Bob, you were here and you should have been here for that call. Anything like that that affected the crew that night. And it's not about criticism or you were wrong, I'm right. It's just about us all getting better. And you see it all, even in All-Stars. You theoretically, you got 4 umpires there that have years and years and years of umpiring experience. And we still get together after the game and talk about, I kind of messed this up and, blah, blah, blah. Or your zone was kind of tight tonight for this age group or, whatever. There's a million things you can talk about. And it's not necessarily, hey, where are we going for dinner after the game? All right. So this is applicable to Rio Vista. It might be different for your league. I don't know. So for minors, it's 8 to 10. Majors is 10 to 12. 50-70s 11 through 13. And juniors is 12 to 14. We don't run a regular season seniors team, but that would be 13 to 16. All those divisions are player pitch. We don't do machine pitch here. Everybody but seniors, they back the lineup, or the lineup is the roster. Okay. For fall and spring, our minors teams either do 5 runs or 3 outs per inning. For fall, our majors do 5 or 3 only in fall though. In spring, it's just 3 outs. 50-70 and juniors are the same way. It's 6 runs and 3 outs, 6 runs or 3 outs for fall and just fall. For spring, it's just 3 outs. Again, minors does not have the uncaught third strike. Majors through juniors does. A complete game for minors is 5 innings, majors is 6, and then the other 50-70 and juniors are both 7. That doesn't mean you have to play those. That's just once you get there, that's now a completed game. Okay. No new inning is hour 30 and a drop dead is 1:45. So that means you can't start a new inning. So the visiting team can't come up to bat if you've exceeded an hour 30. And then if you've already started that inning, it's a drop dead at an hour 45. Now, the same is true of majors, except for it's an hour 45 and 2 hours. And then for 50-70 and juniors in the fall, we did no new inning at 1:45, but you finished that inning. Okay. I haven't been given confirmation yet, but I think that's what it's going to be for spring this year as well. For stealing, minors and majors, the ball has to cross the batter. For 50-70 and juniors, anytime the ball is live, the runner can, at their own risk, take the next base or attempt to take it. For minors and majors, they have to use rubber cleats. They have to use USA or wood bats. And they have a game run rule of 15 after 3, 10 after 4, 8 after 5. For 50-70 and juniors, they can use rubber or metal cleats. Now, some fields do have restrictions on cleat use on the mound because it's a portable mound or something like that. So some fields may allow rubber cleats. Some might only allow tennis shoes or turfs. You'll need to check with your fields specifically. That's not necessarily an umpire responsibility. Okay. If you happen to notice it and you know that field only uses tennis shoes, then by all means deal with it. But that's up to the folks at the field to handle. They can use USA or wood bats. They can also use BB Core bats. Okay, no U-trip bats. So USSSA 1.15, anything like that, they cannot use. Their run rules are the same as the other two. This is for the game ending. It's just pushed back 1 inning. So it's 15 after 4, 10 after 5, 8 after 6. All right, the basic 6. So the basic 6 calls that we make are ball, strike, safe, out, foul, and fair. You could throw timeout in there too, but so the basics. So what we would do tomorrow, if this was the real clinic, is we would go over all of this stuff on the field in person. Okay. The big thing about this slide is it details the positions. So U1 would be here. That's your plate umpire. U2 would be your first base umpire. U3 over here, and U4 at third. This is one umpire's responsibility, B and C. A is a one person. Well, they're all one person. I don't know why I said that. It's just that with B and C, the umpire flips depending on where the runner is. Now, this is a 60-foot diamond for baseball. If you had a 90-foot diamond or a 70-foot diamond, the umpire who would normally take B and C would be here between the mound and second base. What's the plate umpire responsible for? They're responsible for being in the slot, knowing the slot. So that's a position that's behind the catcher, but between the catcher and the batter. Okay, so that what you can see here is the old school method of being straight behind the catcher. That limits that view of the strike zone directly in front. I'll tell you right now, unless you're standing real tall, you cannot see the bottom of the zone from behind the catcher. And sometimes you are forced to be behind the catcher. If the catcher's posted up super inside, you just don't have an angle here. So you do the best you can. But by being over here, it does give you the best view of the entire strike zone. It's a heel to toe stance. So basically if we're on a right-handed batter, so plot twist here, almost all this stuff, all of this stuff, I'm going to base it off of having a right-handed batter. So just keep that in mind. Nothing against you lefties. It's just you see more righties. Okay. So the right-handed batter, your right foot's going to be at the catcher's left heel, and your left foot will be right at the back foot, the back heel of the batter's back foot. There's the strike zone for Little League. It's defined in the book, and it's strike zone is that space over home plate, which is between the batter's armpits and the top of the knees, when the batter assumes a natural stance. The umpire shall determine the strike zone according to the batter's usual stance when the batter swings at a pitch. So I've seen this. So I saw it in the Little League World Series a few years ago. Kid hurt his arm, couldn't swing the bat, but needed to stay in the game. So he tried to crouch as low as he could, and the umpire called a strike that was above his head, but that's where his zone was every other at bat. Okay, so just because you can't just become the smallest little ball to avoid the strike zone. Okay, again, it's over the plate. Now, I don't really like this being the top of the strike zone. Every umpire defines their own strike zone. You do not have to have the same zone as every other umpire. All right. You just have to be consistent about it. So if you're going to call a lower zone, it needs to be for every batter, both sides, home and away, all game long. All right. Try your best to have a consistent zone all game. Ideally, you want to be consistent from game to game as well. But I prefer lowering that zone and then dropping it down at the chest level, but then also dropping it down at the knees a little bit. If I'm going to take 2 inches off the top, 3 inches off the top here, I'm going to give them 2 or 3 inches off the bottom as well. And that's just so that we're not spending the next 5 or 6 years trying to get these kids to stop swinging at stuff that's up here. This is hard to hit, and the higher up you go, the faster they pitch, the harder it is to catch up to stuff this high. Whereas if you get them at the, lower on the zone, anybody can hit that. If you can't hit that, then you're not going to hit it over here or over here or over there. So and keep in mind, especially with minors, the ball, these kids don't throw it very hard yet. They're little guys, so they're going to throw high arcing pitches that are going to come down through the zone and land. I've seen a pitch that came through the zone over the plate and hit 2 inches behind the plate. It's very common. People see it in the dirt right behind the plate. Now, how could that be a strike? Well, when it crossed the plate, it was a strike. So you've got minors is the hardest umpire just because they typically don't throw very flat. So just a word of advice there, or heads up. So again, on the umpiring for A, B, and C, and D is only used if you have a 4-man crew. B and C are combined on a 90-foot diamond, and it's just right in here behind the mound. On a 60-foot diamond, everybody's positioned behind the bases because we need to be able to make sure runners aren't leaving early. So we'll go back to this just for visual. So if you're working a 2-man crew, so let's forget about 4-man, 3-man. If you're working a 2-man crew, the base umpire is going to start the game at A. So it's just on the inside of the fair foul line. So you're going to be in foul territory, and that way if a batter smokes a ball at you and it hits you, we know for a fact it was foul. Whereas if you're standing over the line, was it fair or was it foul when you hit you? Same thing if you were fair. So we are about 10 feet behind the base, and we're in foul territory. And you're going to be watching the game. You're not a spectator. You're going to be honed in on the batter and on the ball, because if you got a right-handed batter and you're in this position, they're going to have check swings, and it's your responsibility to make that call. If the plate umpire asks you, did he go? No, he didn't, or yes, he did. So you need to be paying attention. Balls hit, batters walked, whatever the case may be, you're going to go to B position. You still have responsibility to make the call here, but now you also have a call to make here, either on a steal, on a hit, whatever it is. Let's say the next batter gets walked, so now we got runners in first and second. You're going to go from here to here, and that's because we need to keep you ahead of the runner. So you're going to be in a good position if this runner takes a lead and then they throw it back and they do a tag play here. You'll be in a good position for that. Now, if he steals third and they make a throw, you can just shuffle down a little bit and see the play there and make a call. You will never be in this position unless you're on a four-man crew. Okay. Now, if we got a runner on third and nobody over here, I like to stay on this side because I can still clearly make the call over here, but the plate umpire is going to struggle to see a throw here on a pickoff move on the runner at third. So I kind of like to stay over here. I think Little League says to go back to position A, but I find it a lot easier to help this person out by being here. I can make that call still. So hope that makes a little bit of sense. Now where I think two-man crews, one-man, two-man, and four-man are easy. Three-man's a little bit more difficult because there's always confusion on where should I be, where should you be. So with a three-man crew, you're going to start off. U2, umpire 2, is going to start off here at position A, and U3 would start off here in position D. Okay. As soon as a ball's hit or whatever, you get a base runner, D moves over. That way you've got two umpires who are able to make a call here. Okay. U3 would have the call at second. U2 would have the call if he came back to first. Now, runner gets to second, they just switch. U3 goes back over here, and U2 would come up. He can still make the call at first, but he can get this one if there's an attempt on this guy. Okay, makes sense? This is more on that rotation that we just kind of went over. There's a really good resource on Little League's website. They have something called Umpire University. You can go on there and see all these rotations. All right. For the most part, these are our signals to each other. Oops, sorry. Oh, man, I'm out of control now. How did I? There we go. These are our signals to one another throughout the game. You've got to communicate with each other constantly. For 2 hours, you're communicating, and it's old school. You're not texting each other. You're not IMing each other. You're going to give hand signals. Okay, so we'll start with the left stuff. So timing play, that's if, let's say you got a runner in scoring position and there's 2 outs. You need to communicate quickly. So typically we say take a few seconds to make the right call, but on a timing play, it's got to be quick so that the home plate umpire knows, hey, that guy was out before this run scored. Okay, so before that play starts, you would go, hey, two down, timing play. So you're just tapping where a watch would be. And then this is from the home plate umpire. He's pointing down at the plate like, hey, I am staying here. Whoever's in the field can have everything else. Infield fly. So again, before the play occurs, hey, we got 2 down, or we got one. I'm sorry, not 2 down. We got 0 outs. Infield flies in effect. We got one out. Infield flies in effect. So that's what we kind of do here for the most part in District 2. I think Little League's doing like, hey, do it on your chest. So like 1 out or 0 out. I whatever. I like the hat. It's easier to see, especially when you got a shorter umpire and a taller catcher. You might not be able to see this if the catcher's head's in the way. Now, same with the infield fly. So, hey, we got 1 out. Infield flies in effect. Then something occurs on the next pitch, and it's no longer in effect. So, Luis, he'll go, hey, infield fly, and then swipe his arm to say, hey, that's no longer applied. I usually just go straight to the arm and go, hey, no, no infield fly, 1 out. All right, something like that, or 2 outs because that would kill it too. If an umpire calls time or foul, put your hands up and repeat that call. You don't need to yell foul ball, but that don't confuse anybody. But in time, if I go, hey, time, then any of my partners should also throw their hands up and repeat that, just to relay it across the field. The universal stop sign, right hand up, say, hey, don't try to pitch. Okay. Once this sign on this poster is wrong, but if you're holding them, if you're holding this up, time's not necessarily out. You're just telling them, hey, do not pitch the ball. As soon as you're ready to go, point at them, and then that should signal for them to rock and roll. Now it's the same thing. If time's been called or foul balls occurred or you're starting the game, starting an inning, whatever, point at the pitcher and yell play. Don't yell play ball or rock and roll or anything like that. It's just simple play. Okay. Foul ball, timeout, or a dead ball situation is the same. Just throw your hands up like you're surrendering. Get it way over your head, kind of shoulder width apart, and go time or foul. We don't yell dead ball. It's timeout. Okay. If you see like obstruction or something like that, where it would require a delayed dead ball, some umpires will point at the player that made the obstruction or the interference or whatever it may be, and you just keep it up. Or you can do a fist, and you just keep it up so that everybody's aware of it. Strike or out calls are the same. You just use your right hand, and we call it the hammer fist. You come up crisp and go strike, out. You can, if you'd like to. This is what Little League wants, is the hammer fist, but you can do this off to the side strike call if you'd like, or make it really cool looking. Just don't be like the MLB umpires and turn your head off to the side, because more often than not, you're going to be by yourself or you're going to be with a second umpire, and you still need to be able to survey and see what's going on out there. So you can go off, so you can go strike and then throw the finger out there if you want. We covered infield fly. Safe is just up to the chest and then swipe all the way out, so that your arms are way out here. A fair ball is you're pointing inside the base, inside the diamond. All right. So a fair ball call is not verbal. It's simply the visual cue. So you point straight out into fair territory. If you do it into foul territory, people are going to be confused. Foul tip is you get your left hand at kind of a 45-degree angle, take your right hand, go up, and then into a strike. It's a nonverbal cue. If you're calling a strike, you call a strike. You get your hammer up there and you go strike. If it's a swinging miss strike, then you just throw the hand up there. It's not a verbal call. With your count, you're going to do balls on your left, strikes on your right. So 2 balls, 2 strikes, and it's helpful at this age level to go 3 balls, 1 strike, or 2 balls, 1 strike, whatever it may be, instead of just holding your hands out there, because some kids don't know what it means. They're not going to. A lot of coaches, a lot of adults don't know which hand belongs to what. So please, you can do it simply and be like, counts 1 ball, 1 strike, or 2 balls, 1 strike, or whatever it is. Just get your hands up there and clearly say it and show it. I grew up with, umpires going full count. Nobody seems to know what that means anymore. So just do 3-2 or 3 balls, 2 strikes, whatever. Now, if you don't have it, if they haven't thrown a ball and they've got 2 strikes, you can go 2 strikes, or 3 balls. You don't have to go 3 and no, 3 balls, no strikes. You don't have to do that, but just be clear about it. And we covered time play. Timing is incredibly important. Again, if they were out a second ago, they'll be out 2 seconds from now. Okay. So take your time, take a couple seconds, take a breath, be like, okay, he's out, so that you can make the call. Where umpires get in trouble is they want to rush themselves and they'll go, he's out, or he's safe. Well, which one is it? It can't be both, right? So get it right. Here's a good video on making a strike call. And he waits and he makes the call. Okay. He didn't rush it. It was, they're slower. Okay. They just take a little bit of extra time. Here's an out call at first. So, sorry, it's taking a second. There we go. So he's out. He's still out. He's still out. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Just give it a second. And then this one, don't be a spectator. You're there to do a job. So watch this umpire clearly. So here he's looking at the ball. He didn't see that runner touch third or touch home at all. He was watching the ball. So catcher says, "Hey, get the ball." And then they step on. I don't know if they tagged him or what, but then he calls him out. He is clearly safe, right? Oh, sorry, restarted. He's clearly safe right there. Okay. So again, don't be a spectator. You have a job to do out there. So do it. Have fun, enjoy the game. But don't be, oh wow, that was a really good hit. And now you've missed two things that have occurred on the field. So your goals are, again, to have fun, have a good time. I have fun out there every time I do a game until somebody makes it unfun, basically. It allows you to stay in the game. You enjoy the game. You learn the game. It'll put you into positions to make money. Little League doesn't really pay umpires. We're all volunteers, but you could, once you have this foundation, maybe you go do a tournament weekend for a club program, make a couple $100, or you can umpire high school games or college games. Maybe you'll be an MLB umpire one day. Who knows? It allows you to grow in this profession. We do a lot of continuing education throughout the year. It allows you to help fill a need. There are not nearly enough officials for any level of youth sports or for any sports. So football, soccer, softball, basketball, volleyball, you name it, there are not enough officials. Last time I heard that we were something like 200,000 officials short or something like that on, for all sports and all levels. And a lot of that's because of the attitude and the treatment and, whatnot. But we really need the help. I mean, again, like I said, Rio's real lucky. I think we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 umpires for our league. But we still have nights where we don't have enough guys to go around it. We can't, we have jobs, we have school, coach game. We have teams we coach, we have teams we play on, it's tough when you're scheduling, 100 and something games for a season. Even 20 umpires doesn't cut it, so do it. It's fun. We have a great time. The umpires have their, there's three teams on the field. There's home, there's away, or there's home and the visitors, and then there's the umpires. And we're not competing. We're not going to beat anybody, but we have to help each other out. What resources are available to you? I mean, there's obviously paid stuff, but for free, you've got the rule book. The book itself will cost you about $8, but the app is free. Little League University is a great resource, not just for umpires, but for coaches and parents as well. A lot of great stuff on there for umpires, though. I really, really, really love Lindsay over at You Make the Call Sport. You Make the Call, which is a YouTube channel. That gal knows her stuff. She does a great job reviewing close calls, and she gives you great rule references for those calls. Close Call Sports, same thing. They're great. There's all kinds of Instagram and Facebook pages, Facebook groups for umpires. I highly recommend getting involved with those, just so you have somebody that you can talk to when you have questions about this stuff. Now for Rio, we have a group text with our umpires each season, and then I send out periodic emails. But the group text is a great place to be like, hey, what shirt are we wearing tonight? Or even though I made a schedule where you can pick a shirt, you don't have to really do that. But what shirt are we wearing? Hey, this happened. What's the ruling on this? I've never seen this before. So there's resources out there. And just because I'm an umpire at Rio Vista doesn't mean I'm not a resource for Cactus Run or Arrowhead or Wickenburg or Sidewinders or D11 or D3 or anybody else. We're umpires first. Not, I'm with Rio or I'm with District 2, but the umpires over in District 10 are my brothers too, and I'm more than happy to help those folks out. So All kinds of stuff available. All right, who wants to take a quiz? Anybody? No? Okay, let's do it. All right, number 1. During the regular season in all divisions of baseball and softball, what is the penalty for using an illegal bat? A, for the first offense, the manager will be warned and the team will lose one adult base coach for the duration of the game, and the bat will be removed. For the second offense, the manager and the player who used the bat will be ejected, and the bat will be removed. B, the manager of the offending team and the player who used the illegal bat will be ejected, and the bat will be removed. Or C, the manager of the offending team and the player who used the illegal bat will be ejected, the bat will be removed, and the team will lose one adult base coach for the duration. Dun-dun-dun. C. So I know you're all going to be like, well, these are all pretty much the same. They're not, because this one goes into a second offense. This one doesn't cover that. There's a lot of steps, right? So the manager gets thrown out, the player gets thrown out, the bat's removed, and they lose an adult base coach because you have to have an adult in the dugout at all times. Okay, so it's the little things, guys. Attention to details. Number 2, on an infield fly, the ball is alive and runners may advance at the risk of that ball being caught or tag up and advance after the ball is touched. Same as any fly ball. True or false? It is true. Ball is live the whole time. And it has to be. If it was a foul ball, so the ball's no longer alive, it wouldn't be an infield fly. Number 3, if the ball hits the batter's hands while swinging or making an attempt to hit or tap the ball, the batter is not awarded first base. Instead, the ball is dead and a strike is recorded. And if it was the third strike, the ball is dead and the batter's out. Is that true or is it false? That's true. As soon as, regardless of where the ball's at, if you make a swing at it and it hits you, then it's a strike. You swing at it. If you weren't swinging, let's say, and your hands aren't in the zone, so if your hands are tucked in nice and tight and you're not over the strike zone, and they throw a ball inside and it hits your knuckles, that's a dead ball, and you get awarded the base. Now, this is another one of those myths, right? Oh, the hands are a part of the bat, and I believe this one too at one point, and but one of our district umpires, Russ, is. You're like, were you born with a bat in your hand? And I was like, well, sometimes it feels like I was, but no, you weren't. So no, your hands are not part of the bat, unless in this scenario where you swung at it, and it has nothing to do with the bat, really. It's because you made an attempt. 4, when can runners leave the base in the minor and major divisions of baseball? When the pitch ball crosses the plate, when the pitch ball reaches the batter, when the pitch ball is released by the pitcher. That would be B. It's got to cross the batter. Number 5, pitchers in the Little League baseball and softball may wear any type of sunglasses, and there's no rule prohibiting pitchers or any other player from wearing sunglasses on top of the pitcher or player's hat. A, false, or B, true? That's true. There's no rule that states a pitcher can't wear, or any player can't wear sunglasses. And there's no rule that states that once we get to a certain point, or whatever, they decide to take them off their face, put them on their hat. There's no rule against that. Now, where you could make a ruling is if a coach came up and like, hey, second base has got these Tom Cruise aviators on and it's blinding the tar out of my batter. You could have them remove that for safety. I guarantee you, though, if it's that big of a problem, the umpire will notice it long before the batters can complain about it. So if it's not bothering the umpire, it's probably not bothering the batter either. So if it's not bothering the umpire, good luck trying to get them removed. So this is just some umpires from Rio. You got Luis. He's our league president. He's a coach, and he's been an umpire for quite a while. He's attended multiple clinics, including the West Region one, and he's umpired several district and state all-star tournaments and championships. Again, my name is Colby. That's my picture because that's what I spend half my time doing, is tying little kids' shoes. I'm UIC umpire and coach. I've attended quite a few clinics and hosted many more. I've umpired at the district and state level as well. Matt's one of our player agents. He was a treasurer. He's a coach and umpire. Again, he's done multiple clinics and umpired at the district and state level. Michael is one of our previous presidents. He's probably the most senior Rio umpire right now. He's been a coach, and he's coached multiple all-star championship games. and umpired them as well. Brandon is our vice president and coach and umpire, and he's attended a lot of clinics and done a few all-star games. Ryan doesn't have a picture, but he's one of our newer adult umpires, doing a great job learning the role of an umpire. I left those two with no names and no pictures because that's for you guys. That's where you're going to be. Okay, so we welcome all of you aboard, and we're so grateful for anybody who's willing to step up and do this role. Again, it's so much fun. I had zero intention of ever being an umpire. Obviously, I loved playing. I enjoyed coaching. I was offered to umpire before, and I was like, no way, man. I don't want any part of that. And then Luis badgered me into doing it, and I've really enjoyed it over the last however long. Lots of years umpiring. You develop a different relationship with the players than you do as a coach. It's a lot more fun, to be honest with you, because they'll joke around with you in ways that they won't do with their coaches. So you see these kids for years and years and years, and you're just excited to watch them grow. And when they come around, oh, you're my umpire today, that's so awesome. It makes you feel good. So again, we're just trying to give them the best experience they possibly can have. And if you're willing to be a part of that experience, then my hat is off to you. If you ever have a question, a concern, a rule question, whatever you need, if you just need some support as an umpire or coach, please reach out. My email was at the beginning of this presentation, but it's also on our website. There's always more information on our social media pages and our website. So if you ever have, quick questions about those things, please don't hesitate. All right, guys. Really appreciate you tuning in and listening to me ramble on for however long this has been. But again, if you need me, I'm always here for you.